My aunt canceled her son's Christmas after he embarrassed her by giving his gifts to his stepbrothers. I don't know if I did the right thing, and I really need an outside perspective because my family is still kind of split on this. It all blew up on Christmas Eve, Noche Buena, which in my corner of the world is basically the most sacred family night of the year. To get it, you have to picture my neighborhood in Mendoza. We live on one of those narrow streets where the houses are all squished together, and in December, it's so hot that life just spills out onto the sidewalk. The doors are all open, you can hear 3 different conversations and smell 4 different asados grilling at once. Noche Buena isn't a quiet, private thing. It's a block party. The whole street is family, and we all drift from house to house until the fireworks at midnight. It's loud, it's chaotic, and it's everything to me. But for the past few years, there's been this dark cloud hanging over our gatherings, and that cloud's name is my Aunt Roxana. My tia is a woman who lives her life like it's a performance for an audience that doesn't exist. Her social media is a perfectly curated feed of expensive dinners, flattering angles, and captions about being blessed. In reality, she's deeply insecure, and ever since her divorce from my uncle, she's been locked in a one-woman Cold War with his new family. She has to be the richer one, the better parent, the one who won the breakup. Caught right in the middle of this is my cousin, Tiago. He's 10, and he's just the sweetest, most sensitive kid you'll ever meet. He has his mom's dark curly hair, but none of her sharp edges. He spends half his time with Roxana and the other half with his dad, his stepmom, and his 2 little stepbrothers. And every single family event is another battleground for Roxana to prove her superiority. It's become our miserable normal. At birthdays, she'll make a big, loud show of announcing how much her gift cost. At school events, she'll make a passive-aggressive comment about the stepmom's outfit, just loud enough for her to hear. She'll pull Tiago aside and whisper things to him, and you'll see his little face just cloud over with confusion. We all just ignore it. We sip our wine, we look away, we change the subject. It's the path of least resistance, you know? But letting it slide for so long just let the poison spread, and this Christmas, the whole thing finally rotted from the inside out. We all knew it was coming, but I don't think any of us were prepared for how ugly it would get. This wasn't a one-off thing, by the way. This competitive gifting thing is her Super Bowl. I remember for Tiago's last birthday, she bought him this enormous professional-grade remote control drone that was way too advanced for a 10-year-old. It was clearly expensive as hell. Later, when he opened the gift from his dad and stepmom, a really cool Lego set he'd been wanting for months, Roxana leaned over and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Oh, that's sweet. At least mine doesn't have a million little pieces for you to lose." The air just went still. My uncle's face tightened, but he didn't say anything. He never does. We all just stared into our plates, the silence ringing in our ears, while Tiago just looked down at his new Lego box, his excitement visibly deflating. So this year, leading up to Noche Buena, it was even worse. For weeks, she was dropping hints in the family WhatsApp group, little passive-aggressive bombs like, "Just did some Christmas shopping for Tiago. Hope he has enough room for it all at his dad's tiny apartment, lol." It was exhausting, but the real kicker, the piece of evidence that would become so important later, came about a week before Christmas. We were all at my abuela's house for a pre-holiday get-together, and my cousin Sophia was filming a dumb little video for her Instagram. Roxana, thinking she was being charming and funny, leaned right into the camera, a smug little smile on her face, and slurred, "Just wait until you see what I got my baby. That other woman probably got him a book." A book? My presents are going to make hers look like charity donations. Sophia caught the whole thing. At the time, we just rolled our eyes. Another day, another dose of Tia Roxana's insecurity. We had no idea she'd just handed us the ammunition for a full-blown war. But the gifts were just the symptom. The real sickness was what she was doing to Tiago's head. She was actively coaching him to be suspicious and selfish, framing it as protecting him. I overheard her one afternoon, her voice low and conspiratorial, telling him, "Mijo, you can't take your best toys over to your dad's house. They don't have nice things like we do, and those little boys will just get jealous and break them. You have to learn that not everyone deserves to share what's yours. It's my money that buys these things, and you have to protect them." She was poisoning him, teaching him that generosity was a weakness, and that his stepbrothers were vultures waiting to take advantage of him. She wasn't just trying to win the gift-giving Olympics. She was trying to build a wall around her son, brick by toxic brick, so that he would see her as his only true source of happiness and security. And he, being the good kid he is, was just trying to soak it all in, his little face a mess of confusion, trying to figure out how to love everyone without betraying anyone. So, Noche Buena dinner was at my uncle's apartment. It was a brave choice on his part, probably an attempt to create a neutral-ish ground for the kids, but you could cut the tension with a steak knife. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of roasting pork and my aunt's overpowering perfume. Roxana sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court in a kingdom she despised. She'd make these little digs, complimenting my uncle's new wife, let's call her Laura, on how brave she was to attempt a complex recipe, or noting how cozy the apartment was, which we all knew was code for small and cheap. Everyone was just trying to survive until midnight. After dinner, we moved to the living room for gifts. Tiago, looking like a little hostage in a brand new, stiff-collared shirt his mom probably picked out, sat on the floor. He opened Roxana's presents first, of course. It was a parade of her ego, the newest PlayStation console, a box-fresh tablet, and a set of incredibly detailed, expensive-looking superhero action figures that were clearly collector's items, not toys. He was polite, saying, "Thank you, Mama," in a small voice, but his eyes weren't lit up. It felt like he was accepting a business transaction. Then the moment happened. His two little stepbrothers, who are 4 and 6, were sitting next to him, just staring at the mountain of new stuff with these huge saucer-like eyes. They hadn't said a word, just watched in total awe. Tiago looked at the open box of action figures, then at his little brothers, and then back at the box. He picked up 2 of them, the flashiest ones, Iron Man and Captain America, and without any prompting, he just held them out. "Here," he said, his voice soft but clear. "You guys can have these. I already have a lot at home." For one perfect second, the whole room was filled with pure light. The little boys' faces just exploded with a kind of joy you can't fake. The 6-year-old let out a tiny gasp and took Iron Man like he was being handed a holy relic. Laura, their mom, put a hand over her heart, and I saw her eyes glistening. My uncle had this huge, proud smile on his face. It was beautiful. It was Christmas. It was a 10-year-old kid instinctively choosing kindness over greed, proving that all of his mom's poison hadn't taken root. And then the bomb went off. I was watching Roxana, and I saw the exact moment the mask shattered. Her polite, strained smile dissolved. A dark, ugly red started creeping up her neck, a splotchy tide of pure rage. Her knuckles were white where she was gripping her wine glass. "Tiago," she hissed. It was quiet, but it sliced through the room. "Put those back in the box. Now." Tiago froze, his hand still outstretched. He looked at her, his face a canvas of confusion. "But Mama, I was just—" "I said now!" she snapped, her voice getting louder, sharper. She stood up, her chair scraping horribly against the floor. She pointed a trembling finger at the toys. "Do you have any idea how much those cost? I bought those for you, not for them." She shot a venomous look at Laura and my uncle. "You're making me look poor. Is that what you want? For them to think I can't afford to buy gifts for everyone, so you have to give yours away like charity?" No one moved. No one breathed. The little boys looked terrified, clutching the action figures to their chests. Tiago's face just crumpled. It was one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen. He went from being this proud, generous big brother to a shamed, humiliated little boy in the span of 30 seconds. But Roxana wasn't done. She stormed past the dinner table, right over to the beautiful Christmas tree in the corner, and with a violent tug, she ripped the plug for the lights right out of the wall. The room plunged into a sudden, shocking dimness, the only light coming from the kitchen. She started grabbing ornaments off the branches, her movements jerky and furious. "That's it," she announced to the stunned, silent room. "Christmas is canceled. If you can't appreciate the expensive things I buy for you, then you don't deserve to have a Christmas at all." The air in the room didn't just go silent. It went dead. It was like a vacuum had formed, sucking out all the warmth, all the laughter, all the oxygen. The only sounds were the frantic, rustling noises of Roxana snatching ornaments off the tree and the quiet, hitched breathing of the 2 little boys still clutching their new action figures like shields. My uncle stood frozen, his face a pale, slack mask of disbelief. Laura had her arms wrapped around her sons, pulling them into her side as if to physically protect them from the poison spewing from my aunt. But my eyes were locked on Tiago. He hadn't moved. He was still sitting on the floor, cross-legged, surrounded by the shiny, expensive wreckage of his mother's love. His shoulders were hunched forward, his head bowed so low his dark curls hid his face. He looked so small, so utterly broken. The pride that had been on his face just moments before when he'd offered up his toys was gone, replaced by a deep, crushing shame that he couldn't possibly understand. He had done something good, something genuinely kind from the pure part of his 10-year-old heart, and he was being punished for it in the most public and cruel way imaginable. A hot, white wave of rage washed over me. It was so intense it made my hands tremble. Every cell in my body screamed at me to stand up and let her have it. I wanted to yell, to call her the selfish, narcissistic monster she was. I wanted to scream, "Look at your son. Look what you're doing to him." This was never about him, was it? It's always about you, your pathetic pride, and your imaginary war with a woman who has done nothing but love your child. The words were right there, burning the back of my throat, tasting like acid. But I swallowed them. I forced them down, because I knew that screaming would just make me another part of the storm. It would turn the focus onto a fight between two adults and leave Tiago stranded in the middle, feeling even more like he was the cause of it all. My anger wasn't what he needed. He didn't need another adult losing control. He needed an anchor. My legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water. But I pushed myself up from the couch. I could feel every eye in the room follow me as I walked across the floor, my footsteps sounding impossibly loud in the dead silence. I ignored my uncle's helpless gaze and Laura's tear-filled one. I ignored Roxana, who had now started shoving the ornaments back into their boxes with violent, jerky movements. My entire world narrowed down to the small, defeated shape of my cousin on the floor. I knelt down in front of him, right on the carpet amidst the discarded wrapping paper. I was so close I could see the slight tremor in his shoulders. "Tiago," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He didn't look up, so I reached out and gently, carefully, took his hand. It was cold. Not just cool, but icy and limp, like all the life had been drained out of it. I wrapped my fingers around his, holding on firmly, but gently. It was a simple gesture, but in that suffocating room, it felt like a declaration. It was a promise. "I'm here. You are not alone in this. You did nothing wrong." He finally lifted his head, and his eyes met mine. They were wide and swimming with a confusion so profound it broke my heart all over again. He didn't understand. He didn't understand how his act of love had become a crime. And as I looked into his face, holding his small, cold hand in mine, the rage inside me cooled and hardened into something else. It turned into a quiet, steely resolve. The plan wasn't fully formed yet, but the foundation was laid in that single moment. She would not win. She would not get to cancel Christmas and punish him for being a good person. I was going to fix this, whatever it took. The party didn't just end, it shattered. People practically evaporated, grabbing their coats and their kids, murmuring hushed, awkward goodbyes. My uncle just stood there, completely hollowed out, while Laura tried to discreetly get her boys to their room. Roxana packed up her remaining gifts with a grim, righteous fury, grabbed Tiago by the arm without a word, and swept out of the apartment, leaving a trail of cold silence behind her. The whole drive home, my phone was buzzing, but I ignored it. I just kept replaying the image of Tiago's face in my mind, that look of utter devastation. When I finally got home and looked at my phone, I saw she'd gone nuclear in the family WhatsApp group. The message was a novel-length declaration of war, written in pure, unfiltered Roxana. It read, "Since my son has been so thoroughly corrupted by certain people to believe that my hard-earned money is a community fund for their charity cases, I am officially canceling Christmas. There will be no Santa. There will be no trip to the plaza for the fireworks. And he is forbidden from seeing that side of the family for the foreseeable future, as they clearly do not respect me as a mother. I hope you are all happy with yourselves." That was it. My blood went from simmering to boiling. This wasn't a punishment. It was a hostage situation. And I just thought, no, absolutely not. You don't get to do this. My rescue mission, as I started calling it in my head, began immediately. My first call was to my uncle. He picked up on the first ring, his voice sounding thin and exhausted. "Elena, I don't know what to do," he whispered. "She's not answering my calls. I can't even talk to my son." "We're going to fix it," I said, my voice probably sounding way more confident than I felt. "But you have to let me handle this. You can't engage with her directly. She'll just use it against you. We need neutral ground." "What does that mean?" "It means we're moving Christmas to Abuela's house," I told him. "Tonight. We're doing it all over again, the right way." There was a long pause on his end. Then, a shaky sigh of relief. "Okay," he said. "Okay, Elena. Whatever you need." Step 2 was calling Abuela. It was the easiest call I've ever made. She had already heard a garbled version of the story and was spitting fire. "Esa mujer está loca," she kept muttering. "That woman is crazy. Of course you bring him here. My house is his house. I'll start making more food." Step 3 was rallying the troops. I created a new WhatsApp group, pointedly excluding Roxana and a couple of her known sympathizers, and titled it Operation Nochebuena Rescue. My message was simple. Roxana canceled Christmas on Tiago. We're uncanceling it at Abuela's house starting now. We need everything. Lights, leftover food, any spare gifts you have lying around, music, anything. This is for Tiago. Let's go. The response was instantaneous. My phone lit up with cousins and neighbors saying they were on their way. Got 2 strings of lights and half a Panettone, be there in 10. Sophia is bringing her speaker. My mom is sending over a tray of empanadas. It felt like we were a little army, mobilizing under the cover of darkness to save one little boy's Christmas. That's when I remembered the video. Step 4. I messaged Sophia directly. "Hey, do you still have that video of Roxana bragging about her gifts at Abuela's last week?" A second later, the video file appeared in our chat. I downloaded it, my heart pounding. It was my ace in the hole. We were maybe an hour into our frantic planning when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. It was my tia Marisa, Roxana's sister and loyal lieutenant. She must have heard about our plan. Her voice was cold. "Elena, Roxana knows what you're doing. She says if anyone tries to come to her house, she's locking the door and Tiago isn't going anywhere. She says you're all trying to kidnap her son and she'll call the police." My stomach dropped. She was making him a prisoner in his own home, all because her pride got wounded. The mission had just gotten a hell of a lot more complicated. Hearing Tia Marisa's voice, so smug and cold, was like a punch to the gut. The threat of police, of her locking Tiago in, my stomach just bottomed out. Suddenly, the chaotic, hopeful energy buzzing around Abuela's house felt reckless. Cousins were streaming in with foil-wrapped trays and tangled balls of Christmas lights, their faces set with determination, but all I could feel was a creeping, sickening dread. I looked at the little mountain of rescue supplies growing on the dining table and felt a wave of nausea. What the hell was I doing? I'm his cousin, his prima. I'm not his parent. I'm not his legal guardian. I'm just the 20-something who decided to play general in a family war. All night, I'd been fueled by pure, righteous anger. But now, faced with the reality of Roxana barricading herself inside with him, I started to spiral. Was I just escalating things? Was I making it impossible for my uncle to ever have a peaceful co-parenting relationship again? The thought that this could backfire and give Roxana the perfect excuse to isolate Tiago completely, to cut him off from his dad and brothers for good, was suffocating. She would paint me as the villain who tried to turn her son against her, and maybe she'd be right. I was staging a coup, a full-blown family intervention, all based on my own sense of justice. Was I just pouring gasoline on a fire to watch it burn? Honestly, for a second I thought, Ada here? Am I the one making everything worse for this kid in the long run? I had to get some air. I slipped out Abuela's back door into the tiny, humid patio, the sound of the impromptu party fading behind me. I leaned against the cool stucco wall, my phone feeling heavy and toxic in my hand. I was about to call my uncle and tell him to call it off, that it was too risky, when my phone vibrated. It wasn't a call. It was a message request on Instagram, from an account with a generic cartoon avatar and a username that was just a jumble of letters and numbers. My finger hovered over the decline button, but something made me open it. The message just said, "Elena?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I typed back, "Tiago?" A moment later, my phone started ringing. It was an audio call through the app. I answered it, my hand shaking. "Tiago? Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm in my room," he whispered. His voice was thick and wobbly, like he was trying his absolute hardest not to cry. Mama took my phone, but she forgot about the tablet. "She's really mad." "I know, sweetie. I know, it's not your fault. None of this is your fault, you hear me?" There was a choked sob on the other end of the line, and it broke me. "But I don't understand why she's so mad," he sniffled. I was trying to show her." "Show her what, mijo?" I asked gently, my voice barely audible. And then he said the words that changed everything, the words that erased every single doubt in my mind. "She's always telling me. She says that they don't like me over there," he stammered, his little voice cracking. "That Laura is just pretending, and that the boys just want my stuff because they don't have nice things. She told me not to share my new toys. She said they would just get jealous." He took a shaky breath. "But it's not true, Elena. They're nice to me. Laura reads to me, and the boys let me play with their cars, even the special ones. They're my brothers. I wanted to give them the toys to show Mama that it was okay, that they're a good family and that we can all be nice. I thought if she saw me being nice to them, she would stop being so angry at them all the time." It hit me like a physical blow. The air rushed out of my lungs. He wasn't being thoughtless. He wasn't just a kid naively giving away expensive gifts. This was a calculated act of love. He had listened to his mother's poison, understood it, and had actively tried to prove it wrong with the purest, most selfless act he could think of. He was trying to heal his own family. He was trying to teach his own mother how to be kind. In that moment, any fear I had vanished, burned away by a sudden, brilliant clarity. This was not about my pride versus Roxana's. This wasn't about me overstepping or escalating drama. This was about a little boy who was braver and better than all the adults around him, who was fighting to keep his heart good and open in the face of constant, corrosive toxicity. He had chosen goodness, and his mother had punished him for it. My plan wasn't a revenge plot anymore. It was a rescue mission, yes, but it was also about justice. It was about showing Tiago that his kindness wasn't a mistake. It was his superpower. And I would be damned if I let her take that away from him. "He's trying to teach you," I whispered into the phone, my voice thick. "He's trying to teach you how to be good." I hung up before she could respond. The final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. This wasn't just about saving one night, it was about validating his entire worldview. We went to her house. Me, my abuela, and my tia Carmen, who is the family's designated Switzerland. Calm, neutral, and impossible to argue with. The walk over was silent, the humid night air thick with unspoken tension. I held my phone in my hand like a weapon. My heart was a drum against my ribs, but my resolve was like steel. Roxana answered the door on the second knock. She was wearing silk pajamas, her face a mask of defiant fury. She opened her mouth to start yelling, probably to threaten us with the police again, but then she saw who was behind me. Her eyes landed on Abuela, standing there with a quiet, unreadable expression and a small Spider-Man backpack clutched in her hand, and the words died in her throat. "You don't yell at Abuela, no one does." "We are not here to fight, Roxana," Tia Carmen said softly. "Then why are you here?" She spat, her eyes darting between us. I didn't say a word. I just lifted my phone, turned the volume all the way up, and pressed play. Her own voice, slurring slightly from the wine at last week's party, filled the quiet street. "Just wait until you see what I got my baby. That other woman probably got him a book. A book. My presents are going to make hers look like charity donations." I watched her face as her own smug words hung in the air. The defiant anger collapsed, replaced by a flash of genuine shock, then a wave of hot, dark shame. She looked like she'd been slapped. She knew she was caught. Her entire performance, her carefully constructed image of the superior, wealthy mother, was laid bare as nothing more than petty, insecure bragging. I let the video end, the silence rushing back in to fill the void. I lowered the phone and looked her dead in the eye. "Is that the example you wanted him to follow?" I asked, my voice low and shaking with a cold fury I didn't know I had. "The one he chose to defy tonight? He wasn't trying to embarrass you, Tia. He was trying to teach you. He was showing you that love isn't a competition." Roxana just stood there, speechless, her face pale and splotchy under the porch light. And that's when Abuela made her move. She stepped forward, past me, right into Roxana's personal space. She held up the small backpack. "He is spending Noche Buena with me," she stated. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a suggestion. It was the final, unassailable word from the matriarch of our family. "This is not up for discussion. Go get his jacket." For a second, I thought Roxana was going to explode, but she just deflated. She looked at Abuela, at the backpack, at me, and she knew she had lost. She disappeared back into the house without another word and returned a moment later with Tiago, who was wearing his jacket and looking at us with wide, hopeful eyes. He ran right to Abuela and hugged her legs. The Christmas we threw together at Abuela's was chaotic and beautiful. We strung mismatched lights across the patio, blasted music from a portable speaker, and ate a Frankenstein's monster of a meal from everyone's leftovers. It wasn't perfect or polished, but it was real. And Tiago? He smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He played with his cousins. He helped his little stepbrothers build a Lego tower, and for the first time all night, he just got to be a kid. Roxana showed up around 11 p.m. She stood in the doorway, sullen and defeated, watching this joyful party she had tried to destroy. No one made a scene. We just let her be. But when she realized no one was going to cater to her drama or beg for her forgiveness, she left as quietly as she came. She has never, ever tried to cancel a holiday since. So here's my problem. It worked. We saved Christmas, and more importantly, we showed Tiago that his kindness was something to be celebrated, not punished. But I did it by orchestrating a family-wide intervention that culminated in me publicly humiliating his mother in front of him and the rest of our family. I blew up our family's unspoken rule of just dealing with Roxana and forced a confrontation that has definitely left scars. Aida for blowing up the family drama to teach my aunt a lesson, even if it was for my cousin's sake?